Good evening. I would like to call the caucus meeting to order. Would you all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Cunningham.
Present and in person.
Councilmember Flewelling.
Present.
Councilmember Dawson. Absent. Councilmember McEllen.
Here.
Councilmember Lawson. Absent. Councilmember Howard.
Here.
Councilmember Rodman. Absent. Councilmember Herbishon.
Present.
Councilmember Glover is on his way, but absent.
Mr. Rodman is also on his way. They're tied up in traffic.
Vice Chairman Somerville.
Present.
Chairman Passman.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Public notification of this meeting has been published, posted, and distributed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. May I have a member of the council make a motion and second for the approval of the caucus agenda?
So moved.
I'll second.
Duly motioned and seconded by Mr. McKellen and Ms. Howard. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, the agenda will be approved without objection, and I see no objection. The review of the agenda. The agenda has been sent out to everyone. The consent agenda is very short. We do have several items that are public hearings and first readings and approvals. Any questions about the agenda?
This is the agenda for council.
It's the agenda for council.
Okay, I have to take an action on that.
Okay,
Yeah, I have a suggestion. I would like to amend the agenda to include another item. I understand that the agenda item that I'm going to propose only needs to be approved by a simple majority. Is that correct, Mr. Kevaney?
Yes.
Okay.
thank you. Yes.
Okay. Mr. Greenway, what would be the language we would talk about with regard to the payout? What is that referred to generally in real life?
Paid leave time cash out.
What, sorry?
Paid leave time cash out.
Okay. I'd like to amend the agenda to include paid leave time cash out on the agenda for a motion to grant that to the employees of Beaufort County for this season between Thanksgiving and Christmas, so that they may make arrangements to use some of their accrued leave for a payout.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, and this will take place at the council meeting.
That's right.
Okay. All right, any other?
Do we need to vote on that?
No, we will vote on that when.
No, I mean, you want to vote on it to amend the agenda? Yeah, I wanted to amend the agenda.
At the meeting, right?
At the
At the council
meeting?
meeting. Yeah, because we're not amending the caucus meeting, we're amending the council meeting.
Okay, so I'll do that again.
Yes,
Okay.
but you're just alerting everybody that is coming.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions on the agenda? Mr. Flewelling?
Thank you. I have questions about two of the items that are on the agenda, and I'd like some clarification and discussion by staff so that we can save time. Apparently, we don't really need the time right now, Mr. Chairman. Is that right? We can take a little time to talk about items, or
Oh, absolutely.
are you in a hurry to get to executive session?
No, we still have time, because the executive session is, hopefully it's a 5-minute executive session.
That's kind of what I thought. So item number 20 is my first question. That's regarding the portable storage container not considered suitable for a dwelling. I'd like to talk about that or have somebody talk to me about that for a couple of minutes. Is somebody from staff available?
Yes, sir. This is Chuck. I'm here.
Hey, Chuck.
Hey, sir.
How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
You know, as I'm reading through your proposal and doing my own research, it really seems to boil down to the staff's concern centers around habitability and maintenance and a couple other things as a general rule, but then the big sticking question is regarding your ability to properly inspect. Is that a fair assessment?
In very, very broad terms, yes.
Broad strokes, that's what we're trying to talk about right now. So I'm wondering if your current inability to inspect, is that something that can be overcome with engineering and training, you know, requesting engineering from your various support group, your various groups that you belong to be able to request the kind of information so that your people can be properly trained to do the inspection. And then that would just leave the other broad strokes that we talked about, habitability and guaranteeing of maintenance. Is that
So I'm gonna get in the weeds just a little bit, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So building codes in any form exist to protect the end user. When the building codes department signs a CO, they are certifying that it either meets the prescriptive portions of that code or is equivalent to that code. The issue with shipping containers in particular is, so the question is, can we get an alternate means and method that meets the code or is equivalent to the code? That's kind of the first question. So
That's
to
right.
me, the answer to that question is, with the standards that we have currently, no. So all engineering design, all the codes refer back to engineering design manuals. For structural, it's the ASCE 7, right? For heating and cooling buildings and thermal envelopes, it's the ASHRAE. So you go back to that. All of those prescriptively require movement of air. It's a huge issue within buildings. We've spent 20 years making buildings into igloo coolers, only to find out that they are energy efficient, but in many ways unhealthy, to the point now that code is requiring that you poke holes in them to get more air exchanges and the like. The problem with shipping containers is they are a steel box. I liken them to a fad. There was a fad back in the late 1980s. I don't know if you remember the Energy Star program that one of the power companies did. And there was a fad, and they thought it was a great idea to line all the inside walls of a building with plastic to prevent the transfer of air, because that was the boogeyman, right? If you could stop the transfer of air, energy prices would go down. Well, moisture control issues, you can't deny physics and the laws of thermodynamics. What happened was the moisture inside of the room condensed on the plastic, and 10 years later we started pulling houses apart only to find a thick film of black mold between the drywall and the plastic. Another example of that is putting styrofoam around the bottom of the foundations. Sounded great, we'll keep the transfer of heat at the foundation. Well, it gave a place for termites to bore up, and dozens of houses in the southeast were eaten up because of that, fad is what I'll call it. So I'm sure they were well-intentioned, but there were unintended consequences for that. So when you look at shipping containers, it is a metal box, it is completely sealed, and the the way people are doing it now is they are lining them with closed cell foam. All right, so now we have, in essence, a steel Coke can lined with impermeable plastic. If you use open cell foam, the moisture goes through it, condenses behind the foam, and you wind up with a wet sponge. If you use the other, now you have a completely enclosed container, and there is, to my knowledge, no prescriptive design that engineers can use. It is a guess. It is, for lack of a better term, experimental. So can building departments and local jurisdictions throw it off on an engineer and hope to the wind that it works? Yes. To me, that is not sustainable. It is not fair. When we sign a CO, we are signing equivalent That is an equivalency, which means people can get insurance on it and people can get a 30-year mortgage. To me, that's problematic. I would have a lot of trouble signing that, knowing that it's a guess, knowing that it is a fad, and setting someone up, and perhaps the least in our community who could afford it, and signing a document stating, yeah, it's great, do it, only to find out that there are many, many unintended consequences. It is not proven. And I'll add this and then I'll stop. The 2021 code addresses this a little bit. They don't necessarily allow them prescriptively. What they have said is, if you must do this, in the IBC there is a provision that gives an ISO standard for the structural components of a shipping container. If you're going to do this, you have to start with a shipping container in any form of a building. So it's not just a habitable residence, but any form of a building, a structure. It has to meet the ISO standard, have the tag in it, and it has to be physically verified. So they've really eliminated a number of shipping containers because it has been problematic. So a lot of people viewed that as the building code going, yeah, you can do it. My view, after doing this for so long, is no, they're selectively eliminating the worst components and at least giving a baseline starting point. But that doesn't address any of the other habitability or thermal envelope type issues that we're going to have with them if we allow them.
Thank you, Chuck. I really appreciate that in-depth analysis of the problem. And with your answer, you've removed every question I have, and I appreciate your time.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman?
He had a second, you want, on this issue?
Yes.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Great, thank you. I'd like to ask two questions. That was a really good synopsis, and I definitely appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
So the first question is liability. So if the county signs a CO, what is the liability that the county then has? That's the first one. Then the second one, we had a discussion after the last meeting around what they did in Wilmington. It was Wilmington, I believe? Wilmington, North Carolina? Yeah.
Yes.
Can you refresh my memory on how they were able to do it and some of the hoops that they went through? And I think it would be a good thing for the rest of the council here as well.
So the question was asked about something in Maine. I'm not familiar with the Wilmington. Can you do it? Some people have done it, and they do sign it. What is the liability? I don't know if there is a liability because if an engineer signs, would they have some kind of a liability if it came back and started falling apart? I'm not really sure. I'm not an attorney, but I'm sure there are statute of limitations to those types of things. If it is a guess, then it would kind of be their word against the world, I guess. Tom?
So in the world of construction litigation, the counties and the state, they don't have any, excuse me, liability. Even when codes enforcement officers sign off on inspections, and it hadn't been done to code, and litigation ensues, there's no liability for the governmental entities, unfortunately, in some cases.
So I guess from my perspective, just knowing what I know, and I've been doing this a long time, right? And when I say doing this, I've been a code official for 19 years, and I've been in construction since the late 80s, contractor's license, a number of certifications. I am not an engineer. It's not my profession. But to me, there would be a moral liability. So,
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Flewelling, you had a second question.
Thank you. Regarding item number 25, that's the lease protocol that we were going to be talking about. Regarding, let's see if I can pull it up. I think it's section 3C. Section 3C regarding lease rates and type of tenant and the potential deduction. Can we talk about law enforcement officer, why there's a 25% lease discount rate for them?
Councilman Flewelling, this is Whitney. I worked with Brittany on this, and the thought process behind a discounted rate for law enforcement officers was simply that their presence at some of these locations was considered value in lieu of cash payments because they are able to provide some stability and keep their eye on the areas in which they are living. And some of those are on county parcels such as passive parks, and we felt like their presence there was simply worth some contribution.
Okay. All right. Also, if we could talk about nonprofit corporations, I mean, if the argument for law enforcement's presence is that it has a beneficial effect for security of the property, a very similar argument could be made regarding nonprofit corporation presence, in that the very people who are served by other parts of the county, other domains, I guess, or divisions within the county, they are serving citizens who are also the service profile for the nonprofit corporation that's present in a county building. So why would we not say it's in fact an even greater discount would be necessary for that?
I believe that there is a provision for up to 50% for nonprofits. Is that not the way that you're reading it?
Yeah, it says 50%. I'm wondering why it's not 99%.
That's a great question for the rest of council, I suppose, as far as their appetite for a discount for those types of services.
Thanks. Well, I'll talk about it a little bit then, Mr. Chairman, when the time comes during the meeting regarding discussion of item number 25, if you'll allow me an opportunity at some point. I'd be happy to make the motion for the entire thing and then offer an amendment.
Okay. Mr. Greenway.
Yeah, so one of the reasons why, as county administrator, you all should think about that before you get to this point in the agenda, is that you all need to be mindful that we're looking at a $330 million plus facilities master plan to take care of our own facilities for our own staff. As our staff continues to grow, we are having trouble now finding places to house those staff members. I have people now working from home remotely and in different locations because I do not have office space to put them. So if we're going to offer premium county office space to nonprofits that can otherwise afford to go out and lease their own buildings and office space at market rate or get someone else to do that, then that creates a shortage of office space for our existing county workforce that continues to grow and will continue to grow in the foreseeable future. And with the green space bill being passed, that is going to require additional staff, because in order to manage $100 million in 1 cent sales tax money, we're going to have to add people to help manage that. So that's why I would not support a further reduction than the 50%. I don't think you all should lease any space to any non-governmental agency inside the county facilities as the county administrator, but you all can make that decision.
Any other discussion? Okay, just like to make a note that since the caucus meeting started, 2 members who were considered absent have now arrived. That's Mr. Glover and Mr. Lawson. I would like a motion to go into executive session for the purpose, according to South Carolina Code 30-4-70A1, for discussion of employment of a person regulated by county council. A motion, please.
So moved.
So, I'll second, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Flewelling was the second, and Mr. Hervishon, I believe you were the first. Duly motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? I see none. We will go into executive session. Unfortunately for our audience, we're going to have to ask you to leave because this building does not have any other space where we can conduct the executive session, and it will not be that long. those of you who were asked to leave and those of you who are coming in, we have held an executive session for an item, and there will be action taken at the council meeting. Is there any further items to come before council for the caucus meeting? Seeing none, the caucus meeting is now adjourned, and we will come back at 6 o'clock for the regular meeting.
I'm here.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to call the County Council meeting of Monday, November 14th to order. Would the clerk to council please take the roll?
Councilmember Cunningham,
Present and in person?
Councilmember Flewelling,
Present.
Councilmember Dawson, Councilmember McKellen,
Here.
Councilmember Lawson. Councilmember Howard.
Here.
Councilmember Rodman.
Here.
Councilmember Hervishon.
Present.
Councilmember Glover.
Here.
Vice Chair Somerville.
Present.
Chairman Passamet.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Would you all rise? Before we do the Pledge of Allegiance, just recently, one of our longtime mayors, Samuel Murray, passed away. So if you will join me in a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Please remain standing. We are going to do the Pledge of Allegiance, and the invocation will be done by Councilmember Rodman.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please bow in prayer with me. Heavenly Father, we do thank you for the life and service of Mayor Murray, and we ask that you would comfort his family and friends. Heavenly Father, you ordain the nations, and we've just gone through an election, a peaceful election, and we trust that everybody will start to come together now and overlook the disappointments that people have. Heavenly Father, these are difficult times for many people, so as we gather to deliberate for all of the citizens of Beaufort County, we just hope that what we do will be pleasing to you and that we will be sensitive to the needs of all of our citizens. I ask this in the precious name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Public notification of this meeting has been published, posted, and distributed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. I would ask a member of council to make a motion to approve the agenda, and we will also have an amendment to the agenda. So first, a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Rodman makes the motion. A second, please.
Second.
Mr. McKellen makes the second. Mr. McKellen, I understand you want to amend the agenda.
Yes, I'd like to do that. Thanks very much. I would like to amend the agenda and include, I'm going to make a motion to include that we institute a program again this year for paid leave cash out for our employees to receive compensation during the period between Thanksgiving and Christmas for any leave that they would turn in. And I believe there's a maximum hourly amount set for that. Is that right, Whitney? What's that number?
In the past, we've limited it to 60 hours.
60 hours?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
That's the motion.
I'll second that motion.
Duly seconded by Mr. Cunningham. Is there a discussion on the amendment? I see no discussion on the amendment, therefore the motion to amend the agenda will be approved without any objections, and I see no objections. So we're now at the original motion with the amendment. Is there any discussion on the motion now with the amendment? Seeing none, the agenda as amended will be approved without objection, and I see no objections. Next
Mr.
is-
Chairman, what number are you going to put that motion on?
Very good. I believe we will do that as the new item number 15A.
Thank you.
Approval of the minutes for 10/24/22 caucus and council minutes. A motion, please? Ms. Howard makes the motion. A second, please. Mr. Rodman makes the second. Duly motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, the minutes of 10/24 will be approved without objection, and there are no objections. We now turn to our administrator's report. Good evening, Mr. Greenway.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, county council members, members of the audience, and those that are at home watching us on television or online. I'll keep the administrator's report brief tonight. A few of you all over the next few weeks may be, or you may already have received questions about the green space program that was passed in November. I want to let you all know that I've already started dealing with that internally to set up that program, to figure out how we're going to recommend to you all how to handle board appointments to that, how we're going to divide the county up in accordance with state law to have one appointee north, one appointee south, one appointee east, and one appointee west, in addition to the other appointees specified in state law. That meeting will occur tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Councilmember Howard has been invited to attend that meeting. If any of you, the other ones want to attend, as long as I don't get myself into a quorum situation where I have to advertise it, I'm happy to open that up for you all as well, but it'll be an internal staff meeting for us to begin the discussion, to develop the plan, to come back to you all to recommend how we do that program. We will not start collecting that tax until May, so we have some time. But we will be recommending the bonding mechanism as to whether or not we recommend that you all issue a bond, which was also approved as well. So, do you got any question, Logan? Councilmember Cunningham?
Honestly, I kind of did have a question. I don't know if it's appropriate, but I'm going to ask anyway since we've already come this far. I was just curious how it was decided that Ms. Howard was invited when we had 7 others that supported the referendum to move forward.
Because she's chairman of the Natural Resources Committee.
Perfect. Just wanted to make sure there was some type of reason. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, quick question, Mr. Greenway. Even though the funding wouldn't get started until May, that group or that committee can start work now, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll be bringing that forward as quickly as we can. All right, and that concludes my report unless there's any other questions.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we do have some presentations now. We'll begin with item number 8, the presentation of the Golden Palmetto Award to the Beaufort County Disabilities and Special Needs Division. Mr. Barry Malfris and Mr. Eddie Miller of the South Carolina Department of Disabilities and Special Needs Commission. Would you please step forward?
Mr. Chairman, we will give Mr. Malfris because he's from Beaufort, South Carolina.
Excellent.
Thank you all very much for allowing me to be here. He just said what I was going to say first, which is that I was born and raised in Beaufort. I did spend quite a bit of time in Jasper County because I went to high school there, and our family spent some time back and forth in both of those places. So I've been in this area all of my life. Unlike most of the people probably in this room, we don't want to poll them because it probably embarrass somebody. But it's astounding to me how much growth we've had here, which is good and bad depending on how you look at it. So primarily good, I would guess. But what we are here to talk about today is the Golden Palmetto Award, which Beaufort County is receiving, the annual county award for, basically county provider award that we give in the Commission for Disabilities and Special Needs. And we would like to thank you all particularly for your commitment to people with disabilities, particularly, I mean, there's a list of things on the other side of my sheet, which I'm not even going to bother with, except to say that the thing that strikes me the most is that the county employs so many of of those of us that have disabilities. And I am very thankful for that, as that is one of my passions in life, is to get as many people employed as we can, because that encourages independence, which is what we all strive for. I actually have a disability, as most people in here know, or might have noticed. It's cerebral palsy, and I've worked for myself since I was, well, in my early 20s, which I won't tell you how long that is, because it'll show my age. But I worked for my father since I was 15 in his convenience store, and I've been working full-time ever since. And I was fortunate enough 3 years ago to be appointed by our wonderful governor McMaster to the Commission on Disabilities after serving for 25 years on a county board for disabilities. And so we've been here I've been on it now for 3 years, and Mr. Ed here, who's behind me somewhere, I guess, is our 6th district representative, and I'm the 1st district representative. So we're thankful to have him here too. And the only other thing I was going to say today is that I think that it's very important to realize that God's gift to each of us is our potential, and what we do with that potential is our gift back to Him. And so I'd like to thank y'all for y'all's commitment to allowing people with disabilities to reach their potential. Thank you very much.
I won't be long. Will the South Carolina, the Beaufort County Board please stand if you're here? Let's recognize them. Mr. Chairman, if I may use one of my privileges, I happen to be traveling with the mayor of Maysville, South Carolina, home of Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, and we were married for 49 years, so I just want her to stand. She's the grandniece of Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune. It's your privilege. If you care to, I would love for you to come up and we can do the presentation.
Absolutely.
And to those of you that are not aware, Beaufort County, there are 46 counties in South Carolina, but Beaufort County, when it comes down to recognizing, you know, some people, they say, I'm going to help you. And then you look around and there's no money. You can't help without money. And I say to each and every one of you, the folks that you are helping, South Carolina Department of Disabilities and Special Needs, these are unique people that is deserving. Hopefully and prayerfully, the other 45 counties will one day be able to say that they have 4 wards too. Give yourselves a hand. I'm gonna turn around.
We're going to do it this way, they say.
Mr. Chairman, you deserve it. Hear ye, hear ye.
Thank you. Okay, one more.
One more. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Our next presentation is the presentation of the J. Mitchell Graham and Barrett Lorimore trophies will be presented by Mr. Tim Winslow, who is the president of the South Carolina Association of Counties. And he will introduce the others who are with him.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of council. My name is Tim Winslow. I'm exec director of the South Carolina Association of
Yes, that I
Counties.
know, but it was written here this way. So
But I
have
like
to
getting
read it as
promoted.
it is
Hey,
in
it's
the
a good day
agenda.
for me, too. One of the pleasures of my job is to be able to present the awards that counties receive for the various things that they do on behalf of the state of South Carolina. In this case, the awards competition that the South Carolina Association of Counties puts on. Y'all have made my life a lot easier because y'all swept the entire awards competition, so I only have to make one presentation this year. So thank y'all from my behalf for not having to do this twice. As you said, you won both. You won the Barrett Larimore Award and the J. Mitchell Graham Award. The Barrett Larimore Award is for regional cooperation. It's very innovative and very smart for counties and cities to band together to do innovative things to achieve results. Sometimes you just can't keep it in the county alone. And this year, Beaufort County won for designing the Southern Low Country Design Manual, which is a design manual for stormwater management in the region. You joined with Jasper and 4 other municipalities to do this manual, and it's really a pretty clever idea, because what you do is that way you have a regional approach to developing stormwater management, which helps with swimming and fishing and drinking water, which is something that the entire region needs. At the same time, you stop jurisdictional shopping, which means that people don't kind of lower your standards when you're developing stormwater management. It's a really great idea. Y'all really deserve the award. Congratulations. So with that, I'd like to present y'all with the Barrett Larimore Award. And it's this cool new award that looks somewhat dangerous.
I guess I have to be that?
I would call for the whole council, but whatever y'all want to do is great. Mr. Chairman, we'd love to get the whole council if they want to be in on the picture, but that's up to the council themselves.
Council members, please join me.
Okay.
Ask Kate to come up. She's a stormwater manager.
You have to be here.
So I can hand that to you.
Yeah.
Yours.
So we all doing it?
I guess we're supposed to.
Stand right next to me. You are the important one. If it wasn't for her, we wouldn't have this award.
If it wasn't for all the participants, we wouldn't have this award.
Thanks, y'all. Congratulations. But as I said, that's not all. Y'all also won the J. Mitchell Graham Award, which is the award that we give for individual county for innovation. This year, and I will say, what y'all did this year is kind of near and dear to my heart, which is y'all presented a method of controlling convenience center drop-offs. And that is, y'all have a tag that y'all give to residential homeowners so they can come to the convenience centers 3 times a week, drop off their trash at the convenience centers, and you don't have something happen to it. And I'm not going to tell you where I go to the convenience center, but I will tell you what happens when you go there. You'll see residents from other counties. You'll see commercial vehicles. You'll see commercial vehicles with stickers of municipalities that aren't in the county that they're dropping the trash off at. Well, as you know, that can lead to expenses for your taxpayers. Your taxpayers basically then are paying for things that they're not dumping. So this year, by y'all creating that sticker program and using the scanners with old iPhones, y'all developed a program that saves your taxpayers money and leads to less traffic at your convenience centers. It's something I suspect that every county probably needs to look at. The whole idea behind the award is for other counties to steal those ideas from y'all. And I hope all 46 counties eventually steal that idea and use it exactly the way y'all did. With that, I congratulate you. It was really a cool idea. And pretty simple too, which is exactly what innovation is, right? Simple, cool, creative, saving taxpayer dollars. I mean, that's all you can ask out of county. So thank y'all so much. Congratulations, and I'd like to present y'all with the J. Mitchell Graham Award, this big giant thing.
And the night that this was awarded, every county around us was groaning. What, they're winning again?
I'm not going to begrudge other counties, you know, that's not going to bring. Mr. Chairman, you mind if I? Thank you. Congratulations.
Okay. Yes. Thank you all for coming. Our next presentation is a proclamation for the Gullah Geechee Sierra Leone Connection Day. County Council Glover, would you do the honors for the proclamation?
Yes, thank you.
And it's up there.
Yes, with Pearlie Sue join me.
Yes,
at the podium.
absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's a function that's going to happen on the 2nd of December, the 1st. I'm going to let her tell about it, okay, to invite everybody. So this here is to recognize that occasion because it's going to be something I consider special, and that representatives from Sierra Leone will be here. And so with this proclamation that reads, whereas the Sierra Leone people are ancestors of the Gullah Geechee people who live along the Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Corridor, a federal national heritage area encompassing the coastal areas of the Atlantic Ocean, Berry Islands of North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. And whereas, because of the ancestral connection to Sierra Leone, the Gullah Geechee people have their own culture of crafts, storytelling, foodwares, music, spirituality, and language, which can be traced through centuries. And whereas the West Africans brought forth their knowledge of rice cultivation, specifically wet rice farming systems, which were established in the 17th and 18th centuries here in the Low Country. And whereas among the rice farmers in Sierra Leone, the Timni people set forth an economic foundation for the South by successfully manipulating water regimes, and developing sophisticated irrigation infrastructure. And whereas Beaufort County and the Gullah Traveling Theater Incorporated recognize the culture and economic contribution of Sierra Leone through their rice production and cultivation, and whereas Beaufort County continues to advocate, along with the country of Sierra Leone, the cultural and economic relations dedicated to building partnerships, opportunities, and ultimately the sharing of resources that provide newly enhanced global success through the promotion of heritage and enterprise. Now therefore be it resolved that the Beaufort County Council does hereby proclaim November 14th as Gullah Geechee Sierra Leone Connection Day in Beaufort, and urge all citizens to encourage and foster an environment of goodwill, educational enhancement, leadership, and entrepreneurship among all of the county of Beaufort County. The Gullah Geechee Sierra Leone Connection Day, dated the 14th of November, and signed by our chairman, Mr. Joseph Passament, Jr. Thank you. Dang, and do address council. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you all so much for this. We're excited. The President Office of Sierra Leone wants to continue this relationship. So he will be sending his Ambassador of Tourism, his Minister of Tourism, his governance advisor will be coming to talk about how we can continue this relationship to bring economic development as well as educational opportunities on both sides of the Atlantic. We're so excited. We have 4 students that are now enrolled at USCB in their tourism program. They're the first graduating class of tourism majors in Sierra Leone, and they are now part of the USCB Sand Sharks. So we just thank Beaufort for continuing. This is all of our culture. It doesn't belong to just black folks, but it belongs to all of us. And we've been privileged to be part of the keepers of the culture. So thank you so much. God bless you.
Will you be telling us about the December 1st?
Yes, sir. I'm so glad you said that.
My job.
This is my commercial break. On December the 1st, we will be having the first inaugural Sierra Leone Gullah Geechee Cultural Connection Symposium. We'll be talking about over the last 33 years, it was 4 groups of us that went to Sierra Leone. We were the part of the last group that went in 2019. Dr. Campbell was the first group in 1989, and we've had 2 other groups. And so we're gonna sort of give that overview of the feelings when we went. But the second half of the symposium will be about how do we incorporate this information into our curriculum for our students? How do we turn it into more information for heritage tourism? And where do we go from here? How do we save our children from killing themselves? They have to know who they are and the importance of them knowing that history, and how that history is not just knowing the history, but now how that history can help to save them off of these streets. We cannot compete with drug money, but tourism monies can. And that's what we want our young people to know, that they have gold in their hands. We just need to make sure that they have the information and how to use it and how to turn it into entrepreneurship and be citizens that can contribute to this community. They have a lot to offer. We just have to remind them of that. So that's what we're about. So we want everybody to come. We want educators to come. We want our high school students to come to start learning about this tourism. A lot of people don't know the history, don't know the connection, do not know that tourism is our #1 industry here in South Carolina, in Beaufort County, and in the world, only second to healthcare in America. And so we have to get that message out. And so the symposium will do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our final presentation of the evening is on water demands and irrigation management, and I would like Mr. Joe Mantua, who is the General Manager of the Beaufort Jasper Water Sewage Authority, address us.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chair and council members. And yes, I'm Joe Mantua, General Manager for Beaufort Jasper Water and Sewer Authority, and I am here to talk to you about the very exciting topic of water and wastewater, the topic that many people take for granted until there's an issue. But we wanted to thank you again for the opportunity. I wanted to share some of the things that are going on, and in particular, an issue that we're dealing with in terms of water demand management. So if we could move to the slides. My plan for this evening is to cover, as I mentioned, status of the authority, just to give you some background on some of the things we're working on. In particular, talking about the ongoing challenge that we have with some of our water demands during some of those warm, dry months, and how we're dealing with that in the long term, our short-term solution that we're working with the communities, and then just take any questions that you might have. So just to give you a little bit of background, I'll start with our mission statement, which is to provide quality water and wastewater services to our current and future customers in the Low Country. You can see we cover quite a bit of ground serving various parts of the 2 counties. We do that through 2 water treatment facilities, 8 wastewater treatment facilities, 4 laboratories, and of course we have roughly 213 employees. Of course, as you can imagine, these days that number changes almost on a weekly basis, going up and down with the way the labor market is. We serve over 170,000 South Carolinians in the 2 counties through our 65,000 connections and our 7 wholesale customers, which includes the military in the area as well as several others. Next slide, please. Tell you a little bit about on the water side. So our primary source, majority of the drinking water that we provide to the community comes from the Savannah River. We have an ample supply. Our permit from DHEC is for up to 100 million gallons from the Savannah. We have currently our 2 treatment plants, the Chelsea plant, which is located at our headquarters over on Snake at Snake and 170, where we have a capacity of 24 million gallons. And at our Purrysburg plant is currently rated at 15 million gallons. So put that in perspective to you, our daily demand, for example, today was probably about 18 or 19 million gallons. That number goes up and down, particularly in the warmer months, primarily due to irrigation. I'll talk about that in a little bit. And as you can see, we have quite a bit of infrastructure, over 1,500 miles of pipe in the ground, booster stations, a number of tanks, fire hydrants, valves, a lot of infrastructure. On our wastewater side, as I mentioned, we have 8 different wastewater treatment plants located throughout the 2 counties. We serve about 43,000 residential and 3,400 commercial customers, treating about 10.5 million gallons per day. We try to be sustainable. We've got solar arrays helping provide power at our several of our north of the Broad plants. We're actually in the process of adding solar arrays at some of our south of the Broad plants, which will help power those facilities. And our treatment processes include UV light and chemical disinfection, and our reclaimed water is basically at a level of near drinking water standards. So what we put back into the receiving water is almost to drinking water standards. Next slide, please. And we always try to make sure that we're keeping our customers in mind. As you can see, one of our strategic goals is fiscal responsibility. This year, when many utilities around the region and the country we're all faced with a lot of rising costs from the supply chain issues, labor issues. We've been able to work to keep our rates at a reasonable amount. This year's rate increase, when a lot of places were raising 8, 9, 10, even up to double-digit rate increases, we were able to keep our rate increases to between 3% and 4%. So we always want to try to keep that cost in mind, and as you can see, we're delivering the water and wastewater for just about a penny a gallon. Next, I'd like to touch on one of the questions we get all the time. So everybody that lives here sees all the development that's going on, and everybody wants to know, oh my gosh, do we have the capacity? Are we okay? Well, just to share with you some of the things that we do, starting with, we have a master planning process, which we do every 5 years, and part of that process, we get the latest data, we get the historical usage data, and our engineers work towards developing a master plan that helps us determine what we're going to need down the road, what we need to invest into our capital program. We just completed the latest master plan this year, which takes us out through the year 2045. So that leads us to our capital program. We have a very robust program. This fiscal year, FY23, we have $66 million allocated for capital investments that will help with our projects that we need. And our overall 3-year plan is about $170 million that we have slated for new projects and existing projects. Some of the key projects, I talked about the water demand, and I'm going to get into that in a little bit here. We're currently expanding the Purrysburg plant. That's a $52 million estimated construction project, which coincidentally, we're taking bids on that tomorrow. Tomorrow afternoon, we'll be receiving bids from our contractors. We're also building a new elevated storage tank, actually not too far from here, just up the road in Bluffton, which will give us another 1.5 million gallons of storage capacity in the system. That's about an $8.5 to $9 million project. That one's going to probably start construction in early 23, along with the Purrysburg project. And then on the wastewater side, we are also in the process of designing a plant expansion at the Cherry Point facility to help deal with, again, those increased, all the development that's going on in the area. So now let me talk a little bit about the challenge that we have and what we want you all to be aware of, which is with all those, we're experiencing about 3,000 new connections each year, continuing to see that growth. We have not seen any slowdown. It does not appear to be slowing down. So that capacity continues. We're in the process of building additional capacity at our Perrysburg plant, but what we're seeing, and this is typical, is that irrigation is a big driver, and particularly, like I said, in May, June, July, that's when we get those extended dry periods, when people are out watering their lawns. That's where we see a lot of demand, and it's the big pushes in the morning. So what we're doing about it, next slide, please. That increasing demand is just adding risk to our system. And I'll go back a few months to just give you an example of what we're trying to prevent, which was in May, we hit an all-time peak of about 34 million gallons. And as I said, today, for example, 18 to 19 million gallons was our demand, 34 million gallons, almost double, and majority of that was driven by irrigation. So when we get those early demands in the morning, you run the risk of dropping pressure, which has several impacts, negative impacts, which could be if the pressure drops too low, then you may have a boil water issue that you're going to have to deal with. It also can cause discolored water events, and it also can prevent you from having enough pressure, for example, in particular in fighting fires, which is a safety issue. So in order to, next slide please, what we're doing long-term, as I mentioned, is we've got our Perrysburg plant, which we're expanding the capacity. We have 15 million gallons there today. The project that will start in early 23 will give us another 15 million gallons. And when that plant was originally designed, it was laid out to have 3 pieces of 15 million gallons each. So in addition to the 15 million gallons that we're building now, we've got another 15 million gallons that we can build down in the future. So when those future master plans come back and say, now's the time to start building that next capacity, that's when we'll add the third piece to the plant. So 15 now, in a couple of years we'll be at 30, and we've got another 15 down the road. But the construction won't be done till sometime in 2025. So until we get that construction, what we're really looking for people to do is help us manage those morning peaks. That's when we're talking about a few months out of the year when we have dry weather, when we have people irrigating, and it's particularly a problem in the morning. So what we've been doing, we've been meeting with landscapers, we've been meeting with communities, we've been talking to people about just changing your irrigation patterns, changing your habits. Most people want to water early in the morning. We're really encouraging to try to spread that demand out by having people water every other day, which is really all you need. And then avoid Mondays, because Mondays are typically the biggest demand that we have. And most importantly is just don't water between 3 and 9 in the morning. That's when when everybody's getting up, taking showers, getting ready for the day, that's when we see the biggest push. So if we can get people to just not water during those times, we won't have these demand issues. So we've developed stickers we've been giving out, and we are asking people to put those. And I just want to emphasize one point here. We're not asking people to water less. We're just asking them not to all water at the same time. So when we've talked about this, sometimes people think, oh, you're restricting us. But no, we're just asking people to spread out so we can manage that demand. So how you all can help. First, we just wanted, and again, I thank you for this opportunity because we want to make sure you're aware of the situation and help us spread that word. Understand these are some of the challenges that you face when you're dealing with a high growth area. Help us spread the word. We met with Eric not long ago and talked about utilizing the county channel to help us spread some of these messages. So we appreciate that opportunity. And then just help us educate the community on this. Because we really don't want to get into restrictions, and we don't need to, but that would be the next step if we're not able to really get people to change these behaviors. So next slide, please. So as I wrap up here, just want to mention real quickly 3 things that we're asking for help, which is asking our community to just adjust their irrigation controls and don't water more than 3 days a week. Do that alternating schedule. We want people to Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. And most importantly, just please don't water between 3 and 9 in the morning. And we ask that you apply those stickers. So with that last slide, I think this will be our last slide. Yep, that's it. That's what we're asking. We just want you all to be aware of this. And at this point, happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Just a comment from me. I know I live in Sun City. There was a great presentation by your staff. It was taken to heart. Sun City cooperated, and we reduced the volume of watering in Sun City. Several of the communities jumped right on that. The community I live in did odd even numbers on the streets, and so it's working.
Thank you very much. And again, yes, sir.
No, go ahead, finish.
Oh. No, I'm
done.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you was getting ready to say something to him. Yeah, thank you, sir. I appreciate your presentation. I'm just gonna make one comment. I do think that as community, we need to start looking at conservation, period. What's happening out west could happen here, and I think education is a key factor in that. And I think, now that we don't really need it, it's not urgent, I do really think that education towards conservation of water is something that is good to implement and start now before it actually become a crisis. So that's just my comment. I think people do water and they want a nice, lush lawn. One of the things farmers did years ago was they used to overhead irrigate for tomatoes, and they brought in the technology of drip systems, so they're conserving a lot of water now, and they're still getting the same results. And sometimes people just need to be aware of that they can actually start looking at better ways of conserving water and stuff. So I just want to make that comment.
Well, appreciate that, and I think you're right on with education, because one of the things we've learned is many people move into a house, their irrigation is set when they move in, they have no idea until you tell them, hey, you're probably overwatering, which is just running up your bill, and it's making us build facilities that maybe we don't need if we can better manage that demand. So yeah, I agree 100%. Education is critical. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks.
you, Joe.
Joe,
Yes,
if I might.
yes, go ahead, Mr. Fluellen.
Thank you. Mr. Mantua, thank you very much for coming in and pointing out a problem. But my impression is that really it's not a water availability question, it's a transmission issue. You're having problems getting water from your source to the consumer. Am I incorrect in that?
It really is more of what it really comes down to is capacity. Although, the transmission is a piece of it, but right now, it's more of the demand and the capacity than it is the transmission.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but as long as there's water in the Savannah River, quite frankly, if we don't use that water, it just goes out into the ocean. Am I incorrect in that recollection?
Well, the issue is really, there's tons of water in the Savannah River, but it has to be treated. And we only have a certain amount of capacity that we can treat. And the real issue is when it's in the mornings, if everybody's trying to draw that water at the same time, that's when our peak demand really shoots up. And that's the real issue right there, is being able to treat enough water at that one moment in time during those few hours. That's the challenge that we face.
Right. Well, I guess my point was to address a discussion of conservation that, quite frankly, it's my impression that that's not really what you're trying to do. You're just trying to spread out the usage that you have. You wouldn't really appreciate us using less water altogether, would you?
Well, I think what you're getting at is I I'm selling water, so do I really want people not to buy that product? But really, but it goes hand in hand, though, because as I said, if people use more water, then we have to invest capital to build new facilities. If they don't use as much water, we don't have to expand, and we don't have to build larger facilities. So, you know, that's a tricky question.
I meant to put you on the spot, Joe. I was trying to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Rodman.
Do you have a sense of what the rough split is between home use and irrigation across the county as amount of water?
Well, as I said, you know, we look at the wintry days when there's really nobody watering their lawns, we're probably producing about 18, 19, 20 million gallons a day.
Okay.
When we hit our peak in May, we produced about 34 million gallons. So you can see that's
close to 50.
That's a pretty big push just for irrigation. Yeah.
So, you know, some places, I think there's a few here, some of the golf courses use the so-called gray water, reprocessed water. Is it cost prohibitive in the long haul to really set it up so that we have residential water and recycled water for irrigation?
That would be fantastic. And we have tried to do that. There are communities that have those systems. The more of those types of systems we can build, the better. But it really gets down to when a developer comes in and decides to build a new subdivision, they would need to invest in that infrastructure.
All right. Mr. Herbachon.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I have a somewhat stupid question, but I'm going to ask it anyway because I'm curious. So I understand that the source of our water is the Savannah River, but what is the source of that water? So in other words, if we were to ever have water problems here, what would be the source of that? Maybe it wasn't a dumb question.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Savannah, well, I guess if you're asking where the Savannah is fed from?
Basically, yeah.
What's the watershed, basically?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it's replenished through rain and other, I mean, you know, essentially, the river, where is it? This is where I would be looking for one of my engineers to be here and answer your question.
Fair enough. It was a shot in the dark. No worries.
Lake Thurman, I think, is one source, is it not? We had a problem a couple of years ago when there was a drought and water levels on Lake Thurman had gone down so significantly.
Okay.
It's actually the mountain and the Blue Ridge and the rainfall coming down. Yeah.
That's a picture of the Savannah River Basin. It's the watershed.
There's the Savannah River Basin.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Well, we put you on the hot spot.
It's okay.
But thank you so much
Thanks
for
for
your
your time.
presentation.
Appreciate it.
Very much.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item on our agenda is our citizen comments, and we have 5 individuals who wish to address County Council, and we'll begin with Gloria Wilson. Good evening, Gloria.
Good evening. My name is Gloria Wilson. I live at 21 Sand Live Oak Drive in the Meadows, which is off of New Riverside. And we are here to address a noise issue that we've had for over a year with the property behind us called at Hewitt Oaks on 205 Stillwell Road. It was previously a church retreat, a nonprofit, no loud noise or continual functions, only Bible school once a week in the summer and a few church retreats during the year. It was sold to the Hewitts at the end of 2019. They applied for and received from the Beaufort County Zoning Board what is referred to as being grandfathered. They can do almost anything they please because of the grandfathering without having to have permits or approval. It is now a for-profit commercial business with several weekly outdoor entertainment, live band, DJ functions, playing 3.5 to 4 hours a night continuously. They have one going on tonight. For over a year, we have submitted letters from our homeowners committee to the county and the zoning. We've submitted signed petition by 46 residents about the noise. We've sent citizen grants from various residents, and we have had at least 16 registered noise complaint calls to the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office. This one property is allowed to continuously disturb over 72 residential homes and an equestrian center that surround this one property. These adjacent homes are tax-paying Beaufort County property owners asking the county's assistance to return us to a peaceful community by considering an amendment to the county codes, the decibel level for that property, because they are in Pritchardville. We are in Bluffton. We are less than 20 feet apart. They're different. The hours are different, the decibels different. And we would like for the council to consider an amendment or whatever can be done, because we don't know the rules that much, to make them consistent with each other and to see about some kind of ban, restriction, or something on outdoor entertainment. They put it under a tent and they say, oh, it's a private party. It's not private anymore, because I can sit in my living room and I can hear everything going on. I can sing the words. I could get up and dance in my backyard. I see Aretha Franklin coming across the driveway. It's just that loud. And so we're asking your assistance to help us know what can we do about it.
Thank you. Gail.
I'm also a homeowner in the Meadows area, not far from Gloria. We are respectfully requesting that you readdress and amend the current noise ordinance to address the differences between Bluffton and Beaufort County. The county is at 80 decibels and Bluffton is at 50. Our problems stem from Hewitt Oaks and their for-profit wedding venue in Pritchardville, which is 20 steps away from our yards. These events, running from Tuesday through Saturday, have created a public nuisance with their PA system, the DJs, and the live bands and stages set up for their frequent outdoor wedding events. They are steps away from Bluffton town laws and use a Bluffton address instead of Pritchardville for their media sales pitches to snuggle up to Palmetto Bluff images and yet conveniently hide behind Beaufort County rural laws for their events. Beaufort is the fastest growing county in South Carolina per Wikipedia and other sources. The sheriff department is so swamped, they actually farm out a few of these calls to the Bluffton Police Department. And when they arrive, they've said that they would cite these owners for the noise level issues, but they can't because they're in Beaufort County. Our communities have called the Sheriff's Department numerous times, at least 16 that we could count today, and we have a public nuisance issue that we have to deal with day in and day out between the constant noise during their day, blowing of lawns, grass cutting, dumpster pickups at 4 a.m., and yet we can't get anyone to help us with the 4 to 5 hours of live band noise we hear most of the week. This is not a private party. We can hear it inside our homes. Our homes should be our castle, and I want a quiet castle. And yet, there's an evening tonight, again, when we're going to go home and hear another event. The trolleys are already there when we left. It's time to tighten up these loopholes that exist within the county, and especially in the fast-growing areas of Bluffton. We are no longer in a rural farmland community, and neither are they. They are up against 25 homes on one side. Please amend and tighten up these noise ordinances that you have on record to meet our town levels at least. The sheriff's office says you have at least 200 noise complaints on a typical Saturday. You don't have enough sheriffs with sound meters. You have 2 for the entire county. Please help us.
Thank you. Aaron?
Hi, my name is Aaron Sutton. I actually live next door to Gloria, and I'm not going to belabor the point because they covered most of what I wanted to say today. But, you know, we had the opportunity to talk to a few of you guys a couple months ago, and, you know, the route was go through the sheriff's department, file the noise complaints, and see what we can do about, you know, making them a public nuisance. And, you know, we've tried to talk to the Hewitts. They don't want to talk to us. You know, they advocate that they're, you know, great neighbors. They're there for the community, but we are the community, and, you know, we can't do anything. And they live in one of these donut hole areas around, you know, Bluffton that's part of the county, but it's completely surrounded by the town, and they operate on completely different noise ordinances. And when I can go into my, you know, house and take a shower and hear Chicago playing as clearly as I'm talking to you guys now, from a place that, I mean, we live 150 yards from where they're doing it, and I can still hear it. I can go out in front of my house on the opposite side of the property from where they're playing this and hear everything. And, you know, we call the sheriff's department, and they show up, and then the next song they're playing isn't that loud, so that, you know, they don't cite them. Or, you know, they're at like 70 decibels. We're residences, and I don't think that's appropriate. Like, if they're doing, you know, if they're doing landscaping or something like that during the day, we understand. But when we come home after work, after 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and we hear 4 to 5 hours of thumping or whatever it is they're doing, and we're not getting any enjoyment out of it. I understand they're there to make a profit, but have them move it inside, maybe adjust the noise ordinance, you know, in properties in these donut holes or surrounding the town to be more conducive to life in the town. That's all that we ask. Thank you.
Thank you. Tab?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, council members. My name is Anna Maria Tabernick, and currently I serve as the chair of the Beaufort County Library Board of Trustees. You all know that. So first, I'd like to thank County Council for approving the establishment of a new library branch in Port Royal. That will be our 6th branch for our libraries, and it's a great addition to that area. So we're very grateful that you did that, and that we can use impact fees to fund the renovations, and fingers crossed ribbon cutting would be in summer of 2023. So now I'd like to address item number 21 on your agenda today, which is the resolution to swap identified properties between Beaufort County and the Rural and Critical Lands Program. First, County Council, the Library Board of Trustees, and County Administration are all in agreement that growth and development in southern Beaufort County has created a need for another library. This would be number 7. The Bluffton branch currently has the highest volume of any in the county. Just to give you perspective, make sure I don't run out of time. In fiscal year 2022, Bluffton had 80,000 patrons, Beaufort had 58,200, Hilton had 71,000, St. Helena 22,000, and Lebico around 8,000. So you can see the Bluffton branch outpaced the Hilton Head branch by over 9,000 and the Beaufort branch by 12,000. So they're really expanding. Next, in recent strategic planning activities conducted by the library, residents indicated a desire for a library in the south of the Broad area. The library trustees have been working with Amanda Dickman, our library director, and our esteemed Chuck Atkinson from the Administration of Development and Recreation. And we have been exploring a variety of sites over the last year or so, and you're well aware of that, for a possible new branch in the Pritchardville area to best serve this increasing population. Currently, as we all know, there's limited available property in Pritchardville, and the prices are just astronomical. I mean, I can't even believe what they're charging. Therefore, these considerations have led the trustees to propose that a library be constructed on the property known as the Evergreen Tract off of Route 170. It is in the county's best interest since this property is already a county-owned property and is an excellent, visible, and easily accessible location for a library. The proposed land swap would allow for two properties, Camp St. Mary's site and Bluffton Parkway parcel, both of which the county has no currently identifiable purpose, and those would be swapped out and added to rural critical lands, and that would release the Evergreen Tract for development. As proposed in today's resolution, the land swap is in line with the original reason to purchase the property for the development of infrastructure in southern Beaufort County. I know the trustees and residents appreciate your consideration of this land swap, and we can't wait until you approve another library branch in Pritchardville. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jesse White.
Good evening. One second. Jesse White on behalf of the Coastal Conservation League. First, I just wanted to congratulate you all for once again leading the state in conservation and with the passage of the Green Space Penny Program, and offer that the Conservation League is willing and able to serve in any capacity as a resource to the county staff as implementation and process is fleshed out. I too wanted to comment on item 21 on your agenda, which involves a potential land swap of 60 acres from Rural and Critical Lands Program to construct the new library, new park and rec fields, and waste recovery facility. We by no means question the need for these facilities. We simply question the choice of the location, because we believe rural and critical property must be carefully scrutinized any transfer must be carefully scrutinized in order to uphold the integrity of the program and to ensure that the original intent of that property's inclusion in the program is honored. Here we are wondering if there is additional information that could be provided in terms of the land exchange, the values of the different parcels that are being considered to be swapped, in order to ensure that there's a comparative value in what's being lost from the Rural and Critical Lands Program and what's being gained. Currently, there is not an analysis, at least that was provided in the agenda packet, and so we simply believe that's an important piece of information that should factor into your decision. On its face, 60 acres being lost in exchange for 18 is a little concerning, but that's where the resource values that are at stake come into play and are really critical in looking at what the transfer is going to look like. We understand that evergreen and new leaf tracts were included in the Rural and Critical Program for stormwater management and to protect the headwaters of the Okatee. And so there needs to be an assessment of whether the remaining new leaf tract can continue to fulfill those purposes, especially if the 60 acres adjoining are converted to impervious upland development. So we encourage the council to require or ask staff to perform that analysis of the resource values that are at stake on the different properties. We also understand that the Rural and Critical Board will be taking this up in December, and we believe that their recommendation could also be valuable to council in making a decision. So we would encourage you to postpone your decision in order to collect that information and make an informed decision. Thank you.
Okay, that completes our citizen comments. There is additional citizen comments at the end of the meeting. We're now going to go to liaison and committee reports. Any member of council wish to make a report from their committee? Go ahead, Mr. McKellen.
This will be brief. The Community Services Committee rescheduled a meeting that was to be held in November to the available month of December. And at that meeting, there will be a report provided with regard to the maintenance of private unpaved roads in Beaufort County. That report will come to the committee for its review and consideration, and then a vote taken as to whether that will be forwarded to the full council for the final meeting of this calendar year for their review and consideration. Thank you.
Any others?
I just have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a couple emails come across my desk this week. Maybe, I don't know if Brittany or if Jared's here could help me. what the status is of Rainbow Road being paved.
I think we're unclear on that. We wouldn't be able to provide that tonight, but we'll look into it and get you an answer tomorrow.
That'd be fantastic. Thank you.
Any others?
Yes.
Mr. Glover?
Yes, this is not a committee or no liaison report, but I do want to, and I failed to do so, acknowledge and recognize county staff at two dedication recently for, one was the tennis court and the other one was the naming of the pool this morning. And I want to just say that I appreciate the staff, Mr. Greenway and his staff, those that were there, Chris, PR, appreciate you, and our clerk, and what all they did, and especially Chuck Atkinson and Shannon, because they did a great job for both event, and it was well attended. And so I got to give a shout out to the staff because they really did a good job of PR to get a lot of folks there, and it was well received. And I just want to publicly thank the staff for what they did for those two dedications. Thank you.
Ms. Howard?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You'll see a lot of items on our agenda from the Natural Resource Committee meeting, but I would also like to report as Port Royal liaison, they had their contractor present the plans for redevelopment along Reebok Road, which will blend well with our overall plans for Reebok Road, and it had some really interesting and creative ideas to improve along Reebok Road the economic development potentials. Thank you.
Okay. Any others? Mr. Lawson?
From the Finance Committee, we do have one item on the consent agenda, and that is the third reading of an ordinance which has passed unanimously the past two times for the authority and duties of the purchasing director and the chief financial officer. And then next Monday is our next meeting, which is at 2 o'clock.
Thank you. Any others? Okay, before we go to the public hearings and action items, for those in attendance and online and at the dais, obviously everybody knows that on November 8th we had an election. This year, there were 8 seats up for county council. As a result of that election...
7.
8.
Oh, okay.
Yes, there were 8. As a result of that election, we have 4 members who will be joining us as newly elected council members, and they happen to be in the audience. Mr. David Bartholomew, if you will stand. Ms. Paula Brown, Ms. Anna Marie Tabernick, and Mr. Tommy Wrights. They have been elected. And they will be taking their seats in January. Leaving us after careers on county council for a very length of time will be Mr. Brian Flewelling, Mr. Chris Hervishon, Mr. Stu Rodman, and Mr. Paul Somerville. And we will have a special presentation for them at our final meeting of the year, which will be in December. And finally, we had 4 members of council re-elected. They were Mr. Mark Lawson, Mr. Larry McKellen, Ms. Alice Howard, and myself. And so the new council will be seated on January 3rd. So congratulations to those who were elected and re-elected, and we'll say goodbye to our good friends on council in December. And so now we begin the public hearings and action items, and I would ask for approval of the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, if I might interject very quickly.
Yes.
Has any thought been given, since you brought up the subject of 8 people being sworn in on January 1st, has anybody brought up the subject of staggering the terms so that we can get a more even split amongst the representatives being voted every 2 years?
I believe that is set by statute, that it is 1 more than half of county council, which is obviously 7, and the 8th one just makes it unique this time around. So I
Yeah.
don't think there's.
I don't think that's the way the law works. I think that one of the newly elected people or someone on county council needs to be a 2-year term. You might want to have the law section take a look at that.
I'm not aware. Yeah, we can look at that. Okay. I'm sorry, who made the motion to do the consent agenda?
I was going to.
Okay, Mr. Glover, you will be the motioner?
Yes.
Second? Mr. Rodman will be the second. Duly motioned and seconded. Any discussion about the consent agenda? Seeing none, the consent agenda will be approved without objection. Next item is matters rising out of the caucus executive session, and I will turn to Mr. McKellen.
Yeah, I think that we're going to have 2 items come out of that. The first matter is a motion to have council instruct the Beaufort County Administrator to institute through immediate action a paid leave cash-out program for eligible Beaufort County employees. This program should be structured so that a maximum amount of 60 hours of leave is eligible for the paid leave cash-out program.
Okay? That's not really the matter rising out of executive session.
Well, that was another one coming
That's
out of there
right.
as well. There's 2 of them.
Yes, there's one out of executive, and this one was the amendment to the agenda.
Right.
So let's deal with the matter rising out of executive session first.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to provide the current county administrator the 5% cost of living allowance, which was voted by council, for council, and other elected and appointed officials, and all other county employees in April of this year. The COLA is to be effective in the first pay period of January 2023, and the funds will come from the administrator's budget.
I'd like to second the motion.
Okay, Mr. McKellen made that motion. Ms. Howard made the second. Is there any discussion?
I have discussion if nobody else wants to go first.
Go ahead.
Before I say anything, this has nothing to do with the performance. My belief has nothing to do with the performance of Eric. I think he's done a great job. I've told him multiple times, anytime I've needed anything, he's gotten back to me immediately. Anytime my constituents need anything, he's pointing me in the right direction. I think he's done a great job for the community. I do have an issue with the way that we are going about doing this. He is a contracted employee. He negotiated his contract less than a year and a half ago. I think we are 17 months into the contract. I think it should be done in negotiations of a contract and not added into a COLA because he is a contracted employee through us. The reason we are taking it up ourselves is because there's the only employee that technically works for us to negotiate those contracts. Based on the numbers, which is all public knowledge, originally the contract given was already $20,000 more than our original county administrator, which I did not support. Again, nothing to do with Eric. I just did not think it was the right move. As well as 3 times the amount for the car allowance, just shy of 3 times the amount for the car allowance. Which also I did not support. And now we're talking about a little over $10,000 increase for this year, done at 5% from the value of the salary. It's not something that I just believe is done the right way in a single reading on county council coming out of executive session. I think it's something that should be done and negotiated on with all of us with ample time. Not saying an increase or a pay raise isn't provided, and a lot of people are going to come out and say that it's because of the inflation. I understand that, but I also understand the value of that salary compared to other values of salary that we have in Beaufort County that are getting 5% based on their $35,000, $40,000, and $45,000 salary is not comparable to the increase of the 5% salary increase there. So I will vote against this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any others?
Joe?
Mr. Lawson?
I think that, one, that we should reward our employees, which we've done for our other employees for the county. We'll give them the COLA. I think that Mr. Greenway should also get the COLA. And if we're recommending a pay raise, I'd actually go for a pay raise as well. I think that's how good a job he's done, which again, these are two separate issues. So voting on the issue today, which is raising salary because of inflation, I will vote for that. And again, Mr. Greenway, you've done a great job. In the future, I would be happy to vote for any type of pay increase as well for the job you've done.
Thank you. Mr. Rodman?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I draw a distinction in general between salaries and cost of living. It does seem to me in the case of cost of living, I was actually surprised that he was not already getting that. But I think generally we do that for employees for a variety of reasons, but certainly to reflect what's happening in the economy and the inflation. So I think it penalizes him if we're not doing that because he's subject to the same inflation that we're all seeing. So I'm in favor of it, Mr. Chairman.
Any other comments? This will be done with one objection. If that is acceptable to everyone, we'll pass this with 9 yes and 1 no. And that ends that matter out of executive session. The next item is 15A. I will turn to Mr. McKellen again.
Would you like me to read that one again?
Yes, please.
Like to have, make a motion to have council instruct the Beaufort County Administrator to institute through immediate action a paid leave cash-out program for eligible Beaufort County employees. This program should be structured so that a maximum amount of 60 hours of leave is eligible for the paid leave cash-out program.
I'll second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Duly seconded by Mr. Cunningham, motion by Mr. McKellen. Questions? Any comments?
I'll make one comment, Mr. Chairman, yes.
And while he's making comments, could you make sure that Mr. Flewelling and Mr. Somerville, we can see them, so if they have their hand raised or anything like that? Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Flewelling.
Yes, thank you. Just want to make a comment that it does not really impact the council or the funding at this time. And in spite of what a lot of our employees have been going through, not only with COVID, but also with the cost of living, inflation, this is still a good program to advance and to help our employees, especially during the time of Christmas. So, I'm supporting this effort going forward. Financially, it does not impact us one way or the other. The money's going to go out sooner or later.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Harvachon.
Thank you. I would respectfully disagree with the prior comment. No, it's not an additional expense to the county, but it is additional cash out the door. For that reason, I have not supported this for, I think it's 3 years at this point. I'm not going to support it tonight, but I frankly don't want to vote against it, so I'm going to abstain. But I want to be clear that in my opinion, there is a financial impact, and it is cash out the door.
Understood. Did anyone online have their hand up? No. Okay. Mr. Lawson.
And I will vote for this, but as usual, I'm going to steal one of Chris's lines. I'm sure why Chris didn't say it is, so where's the money coming from for this? Because obviously we didn't budget this in our budget. And yes, I agree it is an expense because, for us, we gave away more vacation days. So people had more vacation days, saying that it was not an expense to us. But obviously, come the end of the year, if someone has worked every day possible and they've gotten paid, we're now paying them back for their vacation. So again, it is an expense for us this year whenever they cash out. It is an expense for us if they wait until they retire and we pay them. So again, we owe them that money anyway. But my big question is this something that again, I should know this, I'm the finance chairman, so, but I'm looking to Eric for guidance on this, or actually, Ms. Richland, if you could help us with where we are on this.
Yes, sir. Mr. Williams looked earlier today at our budget. We are trending about 5% lower in our salaries and benefits category of our budget this year. So he believes that we have approximately $1.4 million in gapped position savings. And we don't estimate that this cash out would cost near that amount. So we should be fully covered from a budgetary perspective.
And last year, I know it was estimated at 700,000. What did we end up with by the time we were done?
It was around 775,000, and our initial estimate from HR at the time was 760. So we were pretty close.
All right, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Just to make sure the record is clear, it's my understanding that this item was not discussed in executive session. This
No,
is an
it was
item that
not.
was added to the agenda
correct.
and caucus, correct?
Yes, I
Thank
did
you.
make that distinction. Any other questions? This will be done with one abstention, so it will be 9 yes, no objections, 1 abstention. This is done without that objection, and we move on to item number 16.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I believe there was a 15B relating, which really should have been 15A, but relating to direction given to the county administrator.
Yeah, but I'm going to give him that direction at the end of the meeting.
Okay, so
We
no
don't
motion.
have to have an actual motion of that. It will be a direction from county council to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Item number 16 is the first reading by text only of an ordinance to amend Chapter 2, Article 2, Section 2-28 of the Beaufort County Code of Ordinance by deleting and replacing a portion of the current text. This was originally discussed in August of this year. It was August 15th to be exact. So I need a motion.
I'd like to make that motion.
Mr. McKellen will make the motion. A second, please.
I'll second, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Cunningham will make the second. Discussion. We'll begin with Mr. McKellen.
This is a first reading by title only. The ordinance that's being presented here addresses 2 distinct issues and calls on council to repeal a portion of Beaufort County Ordinance 2020/27, replace said portion with the relevant language from Beaufort County Ordinance 211/21, and approve a salary adjustment. In 2004, and again in 2011, County Council approved and adopted ordinances 2011/21 and 2004-36, which distinctly authorized members of County Council to receive Beaufort County's annual cost of living adjustment in conjunction with all other county employees and without any stipulations. These ordinances passed by County Council in 2004 and 2011 were constitutional legislative enactments and were binding until an action to repeal was undertaken by the authorizing body or until the ordinance was challenged and declared invalid by a court of competent jurisdiction. In 2019, County Council approved a COLA for all employees. This COLA was meant to address inflationary pressures in the local economy, affecting the purchasing powers of employees located in that local economy. The COLA was enacted to provide immediate assistance for all employees, including elected and appointed officials, to deal with the rising costs of fuel, food, clothing, car repairs, medical bills, prescription costs, and other items affected by inflationary conditions. Council received the COLA in compliance with the Beaufort County Ordinance passed in 2004 and 2011, neither of which had been repealed or ruled invalid at this point. Shortly thereafter, the county administrator at that time requested and received an opinion from the county attorney's office stating that the contemporaneous granting of a COLA to county council conflicted with South Carolina Code 49100, which controls the timing of county council salary changes. That statute states that base salary changes shall not be effective for county council until the commencement of the term of at least 2 members being elected at the prior general election. That opinion from the county attorney's office caused the return of the COLA payments already received by council and delayed further payment of the COLA from 2019 until January of 2021, a period of 18 months. In 2020, the same county administrator caused an ordinance to be created and presented to county council seeking to repeal the existing and valid county ordinance authorizing contemporaneous COLA payments with the explanation that the county ordinance conflicted with South Carolina Code 49100. The basis for this action was the same opinion issued by the county attorney's office, thus causing the county ordinance that was valid and binding to be repealed by the authorizing body in the mistaken belief that the county ordinance conflicted with South Carolina Code 49100. In April of 2022, another COLA was granted to all employees, and it was delayed until January of 2023 for county council, using the same logic that appeared to be plausible but was not. It has since become clear that the ordinances passed by county council in 04 and 11 were constitutional, valid, and binding. Neither had been repealed nor deemed invalid by a court of competent jurisdiction, and were therefore still valid and binding when the adverse action reversing the July 19 COLA was undertaken. In September of 22, a South Carolina Attorney General's opinion was requested on this matter. The question was not whether COLAs were permitted, but whether a contemporaneous COLA was in conflict with SC 49100. The Attorney General's opinion stated, after 4 pages of analysis, and I quote, "The ordinance as proposed may be in conflict with South Carolina 49100," end quotes. On the other hand, the South Carolina Association of Counties weighed in, stating that so long as the ordinance authorizing COLAs is adopted in accordance with South Carolina Code 49100 in its first year, it is valid and binding in successive years. We believe the language contained in this ordinance today rectifies the inappropriate action taken in 2020 and correctly reinstates the former county ordinances authorizing contemporaneous granting of council-related COLAs. A separate issue to be discussed references Section 49100 again, which states council may adjust its base salary in an election year when 2 or more council members are elected. This is that year. The last base salary adjustment was made in 2020. Prior to 2020, the last adjustment was made in the year 2011. Prior to that, it was adjusted in the year 2004. The next adjustment permitted after this year will be at the end of 2024 with an effective date of January 2025. Currently, county council's salary is $27,797. This proposed ordinance will adjust that salary to $30,000, a difference of $2,303 on an annual basis, with a 16% premium for the chair and an 8% premium for the vice chair. No base salary adjustment can be made in 2023 or in 2024, as the next base salary adjustment that can be considered for council will be in the year 2024, in line with the next scheduled general election. Thank you very much.
Other members addressing the issue.
I'll step in.
Ms. Howard.
Councilman McKellen did an eloquent job of describing what he thought and what he thought was the right thing to do. I disagree. I don't think we need to do this. I don't think we gave ourselves a raise before. I will not vote for this. I do not believe that we need a COLA. Although we do have new council members coming on, I know they all entered into the race to be elected to serve, not for a pay increase, and I will not vote for this. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Cunningham.
Thank you. I think it's kind of interesting that these kind of come back to back when it wasn't really planned that way. I've had the same logic about this since I came on county council, since before I ran. Honestly, the raise of the $2,000 or $3,000 that's on there, I think it's a step, but my logic has always been the same. It's kind of an unpopular opinion, especially when people first start to say it. But this job is very limited to the people that can run for it. And I say that because of the pay itself. If you look across county council or past county councils, it usually consists of the exact same thing, and that is usually an average age of over 55 to 60, people that are retired, close to retirement, or own their own business. There's a few that continue to work, or are part-time, or work for somebody else. And right off the bat, when you talk about a salary of $20-some thousand, that cuts the amount of people that can run for this position drastically. Anybody that works a 9 to 5 is very, very limited to be able to do this job just based on meetings and schedules, and it makes it nearly impossible. Speaking for someone that goes to work usually after this meeting, I go back to work every single time. I've always told people I think it should be, I heard it from Chris Hervishon years ago, it should be on the same pay scale as our other elected officials like our treasurer and our auditor if you want to get the best people for that job. I've always said everybody up here should be contested in an election. We should be able to earn that right to continue to represent people, myself included. I suspect that, especially with me saying it time and time again, I would be challenged during a primary and a general, as I should. And if I do a good job, I'll be reelected. If not, then it's time for me to go. So I will support this. I do think that this is something we need to look at in the future, that if we want to get the best people on county council and the best results for the community, that it's something that we need to dive in deeper to. Thank you.
Any others?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say that I've never actually supported a pay increase, and I'm not going to do that now. So just want to go on the record saying that.
Any others? Mr. Rodden?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will support this, and as I kind of remember, I could be stand corrected, but when we did the pay increase 2 or 3 years ago, we had a thing where we had a lower base pay than we had when we did the increase a couple of years ago, we had a system where we had a lower base pay and then a stipend of $40 per meeting and covering other events. And so we essentially eliminated that system and rolled it into the salary. You can argue with the amount, but I don't find it to be unfair, and I think it's probably still underpaying those that actually are on council and put in a lot of time. So I'm in favor of this.
Okay. Are we done with comments? Would you call the roll on this one, please? Mr. McKellen will begin.
Councilmember McKellen?
Yes.
Councilmember Cunningham?
Yes.
Councilmember Flewelling?
No.
Councilmember Lawson?
Mark Lawson, no.
Councilmember Howard?
No.
Councilmember Rodman?
Yes.
Councilmember Glover?
No.
Vice Chair Somerville?
Yes.
Chairman Passament?
Yes. You forgot Mr. Hervishon.
Councilmember Hervishon?
No.
5 no.
Fails 5-5.
5-5.
Item number 17, public hearing and second reading of an ordinance to amend the zoning map of Beaufort County to change 175 Fording Island Road from T2 Rural to C5 Regional Center Mixed Use. A motion, please.
I'll make a motion to change the zoning.
Ms. Howard? Second.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Rodman made the second. Is there any member of the public wishes to address this particular issue? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing portion. Is there any discussion by county council? Seeing none, this will be approved without objection. Item 18 is a public hearing and second reading of an ordinance for a text amendment to the Community Development Code, Section 5.11.60, River Buffer, to clarify penalties for removing trees from the river buffer without appropriate permits. Motion, please.
I'll make a motion to do this, to clarify removing trees from the river buffer.
Ms. Howard makes the
I'll
motion.
second, sir.
Second, please.
I'll second, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Flewelling. Motioned and seconded. Is there any member of the public who wishes to address this item? Seeing none, we will move on to discussion from county council. Seeing none, this will be approved without objection, and there are no objections. Item 19 is a public hearing and second reading of an ordinance amending the Beaufort County Code of Ordinance, Chapter 74, Building and Building Regulations, Section 74-64, Adoption of Building Codes, which amends the Code of Ordinance to adopt the 2021 state-mandated code additions. A motion, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to adopt the 2021 state mandated code additions.
Ms. Howard makes the motion. A second, please.
I'll second.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Mr. Glover was first. Duly motioned and seconded. Anyone from the public wish to weigh in on this particular item? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion. Any member of council wish to make a comment, question? Mr. Rodman?
I find it kind of interesting, Mr. Chairman, that we have to vote on something that's mandated by the state. I don't know what happens if we voted against it.
You're still going to get it. But thank you for that topic. Okay. Any other comments? This will be done without objection, and I see no objections. Item 20 is a public hearing and second reading of an ordinance for a text amendment to the Community Development Code, Section 5.3.20, which is Architectural Standards and Guidelines Applicability, and Appendix Division A.1.20, which is Community Preservation District's relationship to the Community Development Code, to restrict that a shipping container or other similar portable storage container is not considered a dwelling. A motion, please.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Rodman makes the motion. A second, please.
I'll second the motion.
Ms. Howard. We'll go to the public first. Any member of the public who wishes to make a comment on this particular item? Seeing no comments, we'll go to the members of council. Mr. Flewelling, you had questions regarding this before. Were they answered
Thank you.
sufficiently?
Yes, they were, though. I'd like to make a short statement, if I could, please, sir, that
Yes.
generally I'm in favor of letting property owners do whatever they want on their property as long as it doesn't negatively affect a neighbor. And in this case, I'm concerned that that it really brings down the whole community, and that's if the standards aren't equally applied across the board, which they could not be for this type of structure. I think that I'm going to have to vote in favor of this, and I think the clarity of staff, Mr. Atkinson did a really remarkable job of explaining it and pretty much satisfying all my concerns. Thank you.
Absolutely, he did. Anyone else? Mr. Hervishon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would echo what Mr. Flewelling said. Mr. Atkinson did a phenomenal job earlier presenting this, and the discussion was very valuable. For me, I definitely wouldn't do this. There's a lot of concerns with the shipping container and converting it to a residence. It doesn't seem like a good idea to me. But if the county signing the CO is not going to have any sort of liability, I generally tend to lean toward the homeowner or the property owner and say you can do whatever you want so long as you are not infringing on somebody else. So for that reason, I'm going to vote against this, but I definitely appreciate the conversation and appreciate the pros and cons.
Okay. Any other comments? Mr. Cunningham?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll echo Chuck did a great job with his presentation earlier. I do share some of the same concerns. It's not something that I'm looking to do, but I don't believe it's my place to tell somebody if they can meet the codes and spend whatever dollar amount they want, that they're not allowed to do it. And it also still kind of rubs me the wrong way that if it was on wheels, then it's a whole nother ball of wax that somebody could put something that's less suitable than the shipping containers completely remodeled, but put it on wheels and then it is allowed. So I do still wrestle with that as well. So I will be against it as well for the time being. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments?
Joe?
Yes. Mr. Lawson?
I'm going to vote for this, even though I'm a property rights guy, and it's because this is a life safety issue. Anytime you have containers like this and people start using them as dwellings without having the proper codes and things enforced, that you must have a permit and do things that a structural engineer requires. I mean, for us, we are very, very strict on hurricane code enforcement. Most of these items that are mentioned, it is almost impossible to have windows and doors that will meet hurricane structure codes. And then you also think about just life and fire issues, that you have one door in, one door out of one of these containers, and you have a fire, you must have a second egress. So that means you're cutting a second hole in that container. So again, this is not just about letting people do what they want. This is actually protecting the public from people living in illegal and dangerous structures that are not permitted and not given the proper review from the county.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, just one comment. I'm going to support the motion that's on the floor. However, I do have reservation about the standard, and I do know that there are other communities that are actually doing this, but I can't tell you that I agree with it, but I do know that they're doing it, and they're doing it for different reasons. So I'm going to support the motion, but I do have reservation in that support. Thank you.
Okay, everyone has weighed in. The way I see it, this will be approved by 8 yes and 2 no. And the motion.
Chairman, I require a voice vote, please.
Okay. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Rodman?
Yes.
Councilmember Howard?
Yes.
Councilmember Cunningham?
No.
Councilmember Flewelling?
Yes.
Councilmember McEllen?
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson?
Mark Lawson, yes.
Councilmember Hervishon?
No.
Councilmember Glover?
Yes.
Vice Chair Somerville?
Yes.
Chairman Passament?
Yes.
The motion passes 8-2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that.
No problem. Item number 21 is approval of a resolution to swap identified properties between Beaufort County and the Rural and Critical Lands Program in order to build an additional library, additional parks and recreation fields, and a solid waste material recovery facility in the southern Beaufort County. A motion, please.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Cunningham makes the motion. A second, please.
I'll second the motion, Mr.
Ms.
Chairman.
Howard makes the second. Duly motioned and second. Discussion.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question.
Go ahead. Mr. McKellen, I think he's there to
I am, yes,
answer
sir.
any questions we have regarding this resolution.
I'd like to inquire about the completeness of the information we have with regard to the comments that were made earlier. And I don't know if you can do that, Mr. Atkinson or Mr. Greenway, with regard to, are you satisfied that we have received all the information that we need to make a determination here tonight that this is how we want to proceed?
So specifically, the topic that was brought up was the value of the land in the swap.
We did not get appraisals because we want to make sure that this is something that council is okay with before we spend a lot of money putting the plans together and getting the appraisals. What we do have is the history. The rural and critical properties. If I can I just share this? Okay, I'll go through it real quick. So I'm hoping you can see this. I know the pictures in the room are pretty small. I think the folks online will be able to see it better, or if you have a laptop in front of you. These are the two properties that are currently in the Rural and Critical Lands program. The top left parcel is the Evergreen Tract. That's 22.48 acres. It was purchased in 2016 for $1 million. And there was a fund split between Rural and Critical and the Stormwater Utility. Stormwater put in $155,694. That seems like a pretty odd split, being only 10%, but Stormwater funded the infrastructure project of the stormwater pond that now exists, which was part of the reason why all of this was purchased in the first place. The second half, the lower portion, is the New Leaf Tract. That's 86.5 acres. That was purchased in 2016 for $2 million, and there was another 10%, almost 10% split. So if I go down one more, what we are proposing, and I want to say this, and it's a little sort of sidebar. I am a staunch supporter of rural and critical lands, and I am a staunch defender of rural and critical lands, what it stands for, and the properties that are in that inventory. This property, among all of the other properties, is unique. It was bought as a partnership specifically to protect water quality for the watershed that flows behind Sun City under 170 going out to the marshes. It is staff's belief that we can accomplish that and do what I'm about to present to you all at the same time. If we did not feel that we couldn't accomplish all of that, we would not be presenting it. And I promise, Councilman McKellen, I am going to answer your question. The top portion is, we would like to split the parcel into three sections. The top portion is a 20-acre tract. We would like to pull that out of rural and critical. That's going to contain a library, if approved. And the reason we made that 20 acres, we moved the line south or to the bottom, to where the wetlands line is approximately, because we would like to keep the stormwater pond on that parcel in its entirety, so that when we design the library, we're not modifying a stormwater pond that is sitting on rural and critical lands. There will be a buffer from the development of the library and rural and critical, which would be the center portion, and then the stormwater pond would be increased in size. So that's why it seems 20 acres is a lot, but the actual area for the development of the library is only about 6 acres. So that's the reason we did that. The portion that will stay in rural and critical lands is the center portion, which is 46 acres. And then the bottom portion, which will contain a fairly large buffer, is 40 acres. About 25 of that would be turned into ball fields. And also we would put BMPs for stormwater to ensure water quality for both the library and the lower site. So all of these properties right now, the county has $3 million in this section, plus the cost of what we have put in with the stormwater ponds. I'm really not sure what that actual cost was. So now, what does rural and critical get out of the deal? Which, Councilmember McKellen, I guess that's what you're asking.
Sorry, 325.
Yep.
Did you say the B is staying the same, or A is? Yeah. Sorry. We're not developing A, just B. Or are we developing both?
Right. The one that says Evergreen Track on the top.
Correct.
We're going to develop,
Library.
we're going to change the pond, put
Yep.
a library in. That's going to take about 6 acres.
Perfect.
And there's access off of 170. The lower portion, the 40 acres, we're going to develop about 25 acres of that. The center 46 stays in rural and critical.
That's what I thought. Just make sure I
That
understood it
stays in
clear.
there,
Thank
right.
you.
When you say development, what do you mean?
So the bottom portion, we would like to put ball fields on.
Sorry?
Ball fields.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, multi-use, yeah, ball fields, yeah, for Parks and Rec. And if you look at it, right now, it has been clear-cut. So for a large portion of its life, it's going to be a vacant field anyway. And as a vacant field that has been harvested, you think about the runoff and different things that would take place as a result of that over time. We would like to manage that, improve it with natural turf, turn it into ball fields, create stormwater infrastructure that actually increases the quality of water downstream. So now we get into the values. We know what we have in that. No, I do not have a current appraisal. It's in the Rural and Critical Lands program. It can't be developed right now. And that could also be said for the other properties because we own them. But like values, what is on the screen right now is an 8-acre tract known as the Camp St. Mary's parcel. This is a very valuable piece of property. It is right on the deep water. It has a dock. It has, I think, 3 or 4 buildings already on it. This was appraised for, I believe it was a little over $1.5 million in 2018, and we all know what property values have done over the last few years. So, in my opinion, I am not an appraiser, this makes up the largest chunk value to value. So acre for acre, we have a much more valuable piece of property here than what you would have at the Evergreen and New Leaf site. So if we go to the other piece of property, this is a 12.9 acre parcel that's off of Buckwalter. It's, we purchased it under condemnation to put the parkway through back in 2008. The condemnation was $500,000. We estimate the 10 acres that we would like to transfer into rural and critical lands to be worth somewhere in the neighborhood of $250,000. So it is staff's contention, without an actual appraisal, that we are apples to apples. We're very, very close. So there is a portion.
Can we ask you a question about that? Parcel?
Absolutely.
The value of that property to rural and critical would be water quality or
So we would like to turn this into passive parks.
the one at Bluffton Parkway?
Yes, ma'am. So even though it is low, it is developable. And
For a passive.
if I go down one more slide, yeah, I think on this one, within the agenda item, it talks about the MRF, the recycling center. We already own this, and the reason that's part of what we are presenting is we would like to split off 3 acres of that 12, which was already sort of grabbed by Jared and his crew as part of the MRF development. If you move to the right of the green parcel B, the county is currently looking at purchasing that piece of property, and then the what do you call it, the trash collection site, the convenience center, is next to that. So what we would like to do is preserve this. To the left of parcel A is a ball field. It's owned by a school, and we would like to put boardwalks and protect this, and maybe eventually turn that whole corner into some type of a park, maybe way down the future if that becomes available. So that's, if that answers your question of where we're getting the apples to apples, no, we have not gotten appraisals. Happy to do so if we are directed to go in that direction, but we didn't want to spend a lot of money if council did not have an appetite for this proposal. Also, it was brought up the timeliness of why we're presenting this. It was requested coming out of public facilities that this be sent to the Rural and Critical Lands Board and get their input. Rural and Critical Lands in November had a retreat. We are scheduled right now to present this. It's on their agenda for December the 8th. I am more than happy to present it on December the 8th. The reason I'm presenting it tonight is because we have a jam-packed agenda on the 12th, and the only other opportunity outside of that is probably late January or February, and that was getting a little, the timeline was stretching out, so I wanted to present this. We wanted to present this, get the information to you, and let you provide us guidance on how you want to go forward considering the time restraints that we're on. And we're happy to accommodate any direction that council gives us.
Mr. Chairman, motion to go past 8 o'clock?
Yes.
Second.
Mr. Hervishon made the second, duly motioned and seconded. Any objection?
I'll object, sir.
Mr. Flewelling objects.
I'm gonna join him too. Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
8 yes, 2 no.
Yeah.
Thank you. Continue, please. Anybody else?
So, if I understand correctly, it could still go, oh, I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
It could still go to Rural and Critical Lands at their December meeting for their input, is what,
So it's a resolution. If it passes tonight, we're done. The swap is, and then we will bring the designs back to you for the 2 parcels. We will do the transfer. We'll do the property split for the one that's on Bluffton Parkway. And when we bring this back, it'll be a library design and a Parks and Rec design on the lower half.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Glover.
Thank you. One of the reasons that I desire this to go back to the rural and critical land for input, not for them to tell us what to do. I think council has the right to do whatever they want to do. But I think is really respecting that committee, that board, that we have commission to do their job, and for us to weigh in on them at this time without any input, to me, seems as a disservice to that board. In the past, that's what council have done. They have been patient, they have been waiting, and they have taken it back and valued the opinion of that board. Personally speaking, I think the library is important. I think the library has been cut out here. If I was sitting here, I would support the 20 acres or less out of this program right here with a swap of the 10 acres plus the 10 acres, 20 acres, 20 acres, 20 acres. I think that's a good exchange without even doing an appraisal. This community just passed a referendum, and they entrusted us to do green space. That's what we have done in the past. A lot of people have said to me, all the rural and critical land board is doing is buying up property for the county in the future. I said, no, that's not the case. This right here gives me that impression that the rural and critical land is buying up property for Beaufort County. And I don't think that's a good message to send to the public. I think we're doing conservation, and that's what we want to do. I think we can swap. We have done that in the past. And I think, as far as I'm concerned, 20 acres is good for 20 acres.
I understand. I will point out that the ordinance requires a 2/3 majority to pull property or to do the swap. So I just point that out for informational purposes.
Mr. Rodman.
Yeah. Thank you. I think conceptually this makes an awful lot of sense, and I'm not overly concerned about the differential in the value. And I think when you look at the Camp St. Mary's piece, that's a pretty well-made argument that that's very valuable land. Like York, I'm a bit concerned that with bypassing rural and critical, both out of respect for them and the trust that the people put in us and them when they vote for this. So I think I would be in favor of postponing getting their input if it doesn't cause any other problem for us to move forward.
Mr. Cunningham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Couple things. First question, I guess, would be this library area. Is there enough room to extend for more offices? Mr. Greenman was talking about a loss of space, 2 birds, 1 stone, without cutting into the stormwater.
No, sir.
No? Okay, just curious.
No, I'm going to say no. There's not.
Yeah, that's fine. One of the things I will say I guess I disagree on some of my other counterparts is rural and critical lands is different than the green space referendum that was passed. There are different laws, there are different rules. One of those is appointed by us. The other one, we have to follow the state statute, the law. We cannot sell or develop any of the property that we purchase in the green space referendum. That is not necessarily the same case in rural and critical lands. There are swaps. I don't think acreage for acreage is the same as what is most beneficial to the community. And by that I mean, if preserving Camp St. Mary's along with the stormwater, but giving up 30 or 40 acres gives us a better benefit than keeping those 40 acres in non-development, it's a non-question. We're saving the watershed on the coast as well as the stormwater. We still haven't impacted that at all, based on what we're saying. I'm in favor of it. This is something that, I'll be honest, we talked about a year and a half ago, right when I got on county council. We were identifying different properties. I think it's a great location for the library. It's a great location towards Sun City. It's also a good location to be on the opposite side of Bluffton to kind of divide the use up of those libraries. And our ball fields are maxed out. The last 2 meetings ago when I got the reports of the amount of registries for kids for softball, baseball, and soccer, it's past 2 to 1 Bluffton to the rest of the county. It's just a lot of where our families are living. So I'm in favor of the swap. I think it's a good location as well for the areas that we're swapping down on the Bluffton Parkway next to that area. And I think it's something the school board would also support, considering that it does back up right next to River Ridge Academy.
Mr. Chairman, I had a comment. Councilman Flewelling, I know you just raised your hand. I'm hoping you will comment about Camp St. Mary.
My hand's been up since the beginning, but thank you, Alice. I'll try to get to it.
He had some public meetings that I went to with a huge amount of people at them. Was that 3 years ago?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I really welcome a way to preserve that, because there's a lot of other people who'd like to do a lot of other things with that property. So. That's a good point. Mm-hmm. And Councilman Flewelling can go into more detail, I'm sure, about Camp St. Mary.
I sure can. Are you ready for me, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead. I was just trying to get rid of all the comments at the dais before we went online.
What do you mean get rid of everything?
Sure, I appreciate it, but is it my turn, sir?
Yes, we're done with
Okay,
everybody at the dais.
I appreciate that. Thank you for the floor. I have a lot of problems with this. The first one is that the Rural and Critical Lands Board has not had a chance to weigh in on this. And I would assume that we would not take any kind of action without the Rural and Critical Lands ahead of time. The second thing is, I know the Natural Resources Committee, which has oversight or liaison with the Rural and Critical Lands Board, also has not had an opinion on the acquisition or the swap that's necessary. The third thing is Camp St. Mary's. Folks, I think that there are already restrictive covenants on Camp St. Mary's. I think we placed them on there a couple of years ago when we included it in our parks plan. I think that in addition to that, there's the general sentiment of the community. Beaufort County is not going to sell Camp St. Mary's for a residential development. We're not going to sell it. There's no way we're going to sell it for anything other than a park. And so potentially there could be a small usage of it in one corner, 1/4 acre lot potentially for the sheriff's office or something like that. But honestly, this is not going to be anything but a park. And for us to swap property that has real value to the program, it was bought with bonded money, and we have obligations to our bondholders to preserve those assets. To switch that for something that really has no value, if you think about it, there is no value to Camp St. Mary's. It will always be a park, and we've already invested a lot of money in it as a park. And so for us to think that it has value to the Rural and Critical Lands Program, it does, because it's already in it in a lot of respects. So I think that I'm going to vote no on this, and I specifically am saying I will vote no until there's a favorable vote by the Rural and Critical Lands Board and the Natural Resources Committee. I will continuously say no as long as I have a vote on this council for that swap. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm done.
Thank you. Mr. Somerville, did you have any comments before I go to Mr. Hervishon for the last comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, I do not. I do support the swap. I'm not sure that, I hope Mr. Flewelling is correct in what he said, that there's already a protective easement on that property. I'm not aware that there is one.
There is.
I hope he's correct that there is. If there's not one, I think that should be part of the discussion as we move forward.
Last comment, Mr. Hervashon.
Did you have a comment, Mr. Greenway?
Yeah, two things for council consideration. One is the reason we did not take this, and I don't remember if Chuck stated this or not, to the Rural and Critical Lands Board, is that this will be our last opportunity to deal with this underneath this present council, because there has already been a decision made not to conduct business on December 12th in order to honor and recognize the outgoing council members. So we brought it back before council this evening without going to the Rural and Critical Lands Board, who decided not to hold a business meeting in November, but instead to go on a field trip to look at properties that they had already preserved instead of conducting business. So this is our last opportunity to do this. If you all want to postpone it, just understand that it's going to have to come back in January, when not only do we have to re-educate you all again in 2 months about this issue, but we're also going to have to bring 4 new council members up to speed on this issue to try to get an affirmative vote. The second thing is this is something you all asked us to do many months ago. We brought this to you all as a property that the school district had reached out to us to purchase to expand, to put a middle school or some type of school on this property. And you all said, we do not support doing this for a school, but if you need it for ball fields, go put together a proposal and bring that back to us, and we will consider that. You will never be able to buy this amount of property in the Bluffton Township for a library and ball fields and recreation fields at this amount of money. And I understand it was purchased with rural and critical lands money. I get that. But the purpose of that purchase was to protect the headwaters of the Ocoee River and to protect the environment. And Chuck has stated, I will state to you all, because it is my belief, that we're doing just that even if we construct things on this property. Therefore, we are still satisfying the purpose and intent of the rural and critical lands property, and that is to protect the headwaters of the Ocoee River and improve the water quality thereof. The third thing, there are no covenants and restrictions on Camp St. Mary's. We did not do that. The previous county administrator did not do that whenever we had that meeting, community meeting 3 years ago. So there are no covenants and restrictions on it. There's some indication that it was going to be added to the active park program, but the reality of the Camp St. Mary's property is that the people that live along that road do not want anything done with Camp St. Mary's other than to be what it is right now, which is a vacant piece of land. So there's not going to be much improvement that will ever occur there. We're not going to be able to put active ball fields there as we originally thought, because the traffic would be too great through a residential area. You do not have that situation here. So I'm done with my long explanation. Thank you to Councilmember Hervashon.
No problem. There's a lot to digest there. Okay, so Chuck, I appreciate the presentation yet again. I don't disagree with anything that you said. I absolutely understand the need for ball fields as a parent of 3 small children who drags them around to every sport imaginable and sees how basically overcrowded we are now in Bluffton. I get it. I understand the need for the library. I totally get that. Where my concern is that we have clearly not circumvented the Rural and Critical Lands Board, but it hasn't gone through them. And I think that, in conjunction with the potential public perception that we're playing games with rural and critical lands property, I personally view that program as sacred. I think even if we're doing the right thing, even if the values are 1 for 1, even if the stormwater impact is exactly the same, I think the public perception of you took a property, you swapped it out, did it with 1 vote, didn't send it back to rural and critical, I think it potentially breaks the trust of us with the public with that program. And I think that once that's done, it's an uphill battle from there. And I would I would be concerned with our ability to continue that program going forward, to get the amount of support publicly that we've gotten historically. I just don't think it's a good thing the way that we're going about this right now today. I would be in support of postponing this, and frankly, I think I would be a little bit more comfortable if this was a unanimous vote that came through rural and critical. We're not there right now. It doesn't bother me even a little bit if this were to get postponed to January and 4 new council members coming on board. I won't be here, but they're all sitting right here. I don't know that we have to do a whole bunch of re-education. They've seen the presentation, they've seen the debate. I don't think that that's that big of a lift, frankly. So I would be in favor of postponing it. If Mr. Robner wants to make that motion, I think he was the first one to mention it. I'm happy to make the motion if somebody wants me to, but that's where I'm at right now. All right, I'll make the motion. Motion to postpone.
I'll second.
The other option that we have, just for council's consideration, is to, in order to keep with the December 12th events of honoring the council members, is to perhaps start the meeting at 5:30, the regular council meeting, to take up this item for the first 30 minutes and then move into honoring the council members, and that would be the only item on the agenda. Rural and Critical Lands Board meets December 8th.
So we have a motion and second on the floor to post.
I'm sorry, can we have a date on the postponement?
Yeah, I was going to say, motion and second is to postpone action until the county council meeting of December 12th, which in fact would allow Natural Resources to take it up at their meeting next Monday. Okay, everybody understand the motion and second?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is there anyone opposed to that? Seeing no one opposed to that, that motion will be declared unanimous. That takes us
Thank you very much.
off the table, okay? So it will be on your agenda come Monday and an action item at the December 12th meeting. Our next one is item 22, approval of a resolution authorizing the county administrator to execute the necessary documents and provide funding for the purchase of development rights on tax map known as Labico Farms. A motion, please.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Glover makes the motion, Ms. Howard makes the second. Duly motioned and seconded. Any discussion? Mr. Flewelling, your hand is up. Do you wish to make a comment, or is, that's no?
I'll take that, Dan.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no discussion, this will be done unanimously without objection, and I see no objections. Next item is approval of a resolution to amend the Oyster Factory Park Master Plan and site layout. Motion, please.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Lawson makes the motion, Ms. Howard makes the second. Duly motioned and seconded. Any discussion?
I'd just like to say that this was a good example of how we worked with Bluffton to get to where we wanted, and with compromise, and I think everybody's satisfied.
Any other comments? Seeing none, this will be approved unanimously without any objections, and I see no objections. 24 is approval of a resolution to update Policy 19, which is acquisition of stormwater drainage easements. A motion, please.
I'd like to make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Howard makes the motion. A second, please.
I'll second.
Mr. Glover makes the second. Duly motioned and seconded. Any discussion?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Glover,
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would love for this.
turn your mic on, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm going to support this motion moving forward, but I do want the administration to look at certain section of the standard operation SOP that's in here, particularly as it deals with the legal aspect that's in here. And when I say the legal aspect, a lot of drainage initiative or problems center around land that's really heirs property. And when you look at trying to get ownership and all the signatures of owners, that could be next to impossible but yet the problem of stormwater drainage will still be there. So just want to look at that to see how we can address that, that issue, particularly around Ayers property. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Any other comments? Seeing none, this will be done unanimously without objection, and I see no objections. Our final item is approval of a resolution to adopt a county-owned real property lease policy. Motion, please.
Move, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Cunningham makes the motion. Second, please.
Second.
Mr. McKellen makes the second, duly motioned and second. Any comments by any member of council? Mr. Flewelling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Generally, I'm in favor of this. However, when we consider nonprofit corporations whose whole reason for existence is to serve the same members of the community that the facilities were originally intended to serve, it just seems like it's an unwarranted burden on these nonprofits that are already struggling and already serving a significant part of our citizenry. And so I'm going to make a motion, sir, that we amend Section 3C under type of tenant so that nonprofit, the type of deduction would be up to would be 99%. Because quite frankly, for some of the corporations or some of the nonprofits that we're talking about, $1 a year is really all that quite frankly, the county is harmed as a whole by losing some of these residents, some of these leaseholders, or I guess right now they're not leaseholders, but it really would be a significant disadvantage to our community to have these facilities be moved, some of these functions be moved. And that's my motion, sir.
Second to his motion.
I will second that.
Mr. Glover. Any discussion about the motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to just chime in on what, I think the staff is really looking at putting together a document, and I agree with that we need to have that type of a document, a lease agreement with our tenant, even though we may not collect anything from them. But I think we need to have some type of agreement. And I think we need to have a standard, and I think that's what they're trying to do here. We are leasing or renting property that a lot of people are just paying zero for at this time, or very little. We actually bought a bond, and we leased it back to the owners, and they're getting very little for it. So I understand that we need something that's standard, but at the same time, there are agencies that are with us that are serving our community. They are presenting services to our community. They're almost like our staff, even though they're separate agencies, but it's almost like they're providing a services for our constituents. So I'm kind of torn between that as we move forward. I think, I would like to walk softly at this time, having a stick that we can use, but I think we want to work with these agencies as we move forward in developing something. So that's why I supported this amendment to this motion. Just kind of walk softly at this time.
Okay. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Hervishon.
Thank you. I personally am not going to support this. I think we've got facility issues that have been well documented for a very long time, a lack of space. It doesn't seem to make sense to me that we'd be leasing property outside of county operations, frankly. So for that reason, I'm not going to support this.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, I do have a quick comment. I agree with Mr. Hervishon. By subsidizing nonprofits like this, we're picking winners and losers. I mean, they need to be self-supporting, as much as possible, and we have methodologies in our county for them to apply for subsidies and grants. So I'm going to oppose the motion to amend item 21, or I'm sorry, 25.
Thank you.
Just to
Ms. Howard?
clarify, Mr. Councilman Herbershon, you're going to vote against the amendment, correct?
The amendment and the lease policy altogether.
I concur with Councilman Somerville and Councilman Herbershon on the amendment.
Any others?
I would just ask for a roll call, yes, sir.
Yep. Okay, would you call the roll on the amendment?
Councilmember Flewelling,
Yes.
Councilmember Glover,
Yes.
Councilmember Cunningham,
No.
Councilmember McGillen,
No.
Councilmember Lawson,
Mark Lawson, no.
Councilmember Howard,
No.
Councilmember Rodman,
No.
Councilmember Hervashon,
No.
Vice Chair Somerville,
No.
Chairman Passament.
No.
The motion fails 2-8.
We're back to the original motion. Any other discussion before we take a roll call vote on the resolution?
You
Seeing
can count
none?
me as a no, sir.
Yeah, we're going to call a roll call on the,
I would just say that in the Natural Resource Committee ran by Councilwoman Howard, they did a great presentation on this. If you didn't watch it, I would definitely go back and take a look at it. It goes a lot more in depth of areas that we needed to improve on, and I think this addresses that.
yes. Okay, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Cunningham,
Yes.
Councilmember Flewelling,
No.
Councilmember McGillen,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson,
Mark Lawson, yes.
Councilmember Howard,
Yes.
Councilmember Rodman,
Yes.
Councilmember Hervashon,
No.
Councilmember Glover,
No.
Vice Chair Somerville,
Yes.
Chairman Passament.
Yes.
The motion passes 7-3.
Okay, we are done with the items of action. We're at the second citizen comments. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address County Council?
Hi, Kate Schaefer with the Open Land Trust. I didn't think I'd make it in time for the first, but just wanted to say a public thank you and express my enthusiasm for supporting the Green Space Penny and the good that it will be able to do in Beaufort County. I think we heard a little bit about some of the details, and details of land protection are hard tonight. Details of land protection, of easements, of thinking about what forever means for land protection, that's a challenge. And your staff deals with that. We deal with that with landowners at the Open Land Trust. But it's important to get through the details and make sure that they lead to meaningful results for conservation and efficient results for the taxpayer. And I think we're all capable of doing that. And so tonight, I'd just like to take a 30,000-foot view and say that we think this is a great thing for Beaufort County, and we're really proud of Beaufort County for putting this on the ballot and for identifying what we believe are the public benefits of protected green space. So that's an exciting thing. I think it will lead to great things to come. As you may know, Beaufort County was one of 3 coastal counties with a land protection measure on the ballot. All 3 of them passed, but Beaufort County continues to be a leader because our original rural and critical program really led to this groundswell that we continue to see across the coastal plain, again, recognizing those public benefits of protected green space like water quality and farmland protection and growth management and critical resource protection. So we're excited for what's to come, and we look forward to working with you all, helping these local dollars attract state and federal dollars and achieving meaningful land conservation wherever possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Greenway.
One quick announcement for County Council and members of the public and members of staff that may have not heard. Today, I made an offer for the position of county attorney for administration and department heads to Miss Brittany Ward, and she accepted that offer, so she will be the county attorney. that will replace Kurt Taylor, in addition to serving with Tom Cavaney as county attorney for elected and appointed officials. So if you all have any questions about that, please reach out to me individually. I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have. But congratulations, Brittany. Job well done. That's the
Okay, before the meeting is adjourned, council would like our county administrator to do the following thing. We would ask for you in the future to bring to us the list of names of anyone in the county who is also a contract employee. And if they are a contract employee, have they received a COLA as part of their contract in the past, or is it part of their contract now? Did I get everything, Mr. Herbishon?
Can we clarify that
Sure.
those are everybody receiving a W-2?
Yes, and it's everybody who receives a W-2, because we do know there may be some contracted individuals. We're contracting with a firm, we pay them a 1099, and they pay the individual a W-2. So that may be different, okay? Seeing no further action, unfortunately, we're a little late, but this meeting is adjourned.